Alright, my project for the day is window rattle on a MK3 Supra. So if you own a MK3 Supra, or if you've ever been in one, you may have realized that a lot of the times the window rattles like crazy. It's fully up right now. It does not rattle much at all. It should be like this more or less the whole way down. A lot of times if the window is about halfway up, you get this horrible rattle, you get clanking, it sounds like the glass is up against metal inside the door. Mine sounds like that, which I'll demonstrate in a second here. So that's what I'm going to try and fix. The window is partially closed now, so here's a demonstration of what it can sound like. Lots of movement, and if you shut the door, it sounds like the glass is going to break. So we're going to dig into the window and see what's going on. Here's one more quick demonstration. When the window is all the way down, you can hear it rattle inside the door when you close the door. One more time. Sounds horrible. So we're going to try and fix that. To remove the door panel from MK3, you've got a few screws, two in the handle right here, one down in the handle pocket right there, and then two up on the front side of the door. If you pop off these covers, you can get to these screws. You've got to peel out these covers here to get to those. Undo that screw. Okay, we removed the covers to get access to 4 of the screws, and the 5th one's right in there. And these guys can be really difficult to get out. I had a really hard time getting these out, and I think that's just as the car gets older, the plastic gets less and less pliable, and it's pretty difficult to get out. But now I've got them out of the way. So don't forget the screws down on the bottom of the door. That would be important to getting the door off. And then a third, I believe, way up front, way up there. Oh, and I have yet another screw in here, so there are actually 4 along the bottom. Okay, there are 5 on the bottom. Holy shit. Okay, here we go. And the door panel is loose, but we still have electrical connectors, so be careful. Okay. Courtesy light unplugged, and I've got a crossover that the previous owner wired in here, or a tweeter rather. So we unplug that, and the door panel's off. So now that we have the door panel removed, we can see a little bit more in the door. I'm going to remove a lot of this moisture barrier, or just peel it back. Mine's not very well sealed. The door's been opened a bunch. I can seal it back up if I need to with some RTV or something. So let's just start pulling this away a little more. So I'm going to plug in the switch, try and move it up about halfway where the problem is, and see if there's anything that really sticks out as being the problem. Door switch back installed here, just plugged in. And I've got the keys turned down to accessories so we can turn the window. Just make sure everything stays out of the way. So you can see the regulator right there. Motor's loud. And I can see the felt pads right here. So those I'm going to replace if I can. you should be able to pull those off and clean them, but I would prefer to just remove them altogether. So there's a bump up here, bump stop, and there's a roller right up here. It's on this adjustment piece right there. So there may be some adjustment in the pads. If I adjust the pads out or up more, they would make contact a little bit better. So we're up a little higher. Okay, now I got a ton of movement. And it looks like those pads might be the main issue. There's a pad on the back side, meaning the exterior side, that I can see right opposite of this. So it might be good to replace both of those pads. But if I try and grab my window and pull up and down when it's halfway, I can't really pull up and down. I guess there's a little movement up towards the front side. So I may need to take the speaker out so I can get a better view back there. But the back side, I can't rock much at all. I definitely can't move the center. So it looks like the pads towards the top are likely candidates. And this one is just completely squashed. And hey, look at that. There is a missing pad on the back side. So that son of a bitch might be the problem. So, definitely have to replace that. I'll try and replace these as well. And that may solve a lot of my problem. Okay, I think I've narrowed it down to a combination of these trim supports, as the Toyota manuals call it, trim supports, and the regulator. Regulator or this stabilizer or equalizer, I don't know what they call it. So to try and get those out, I need to remove the glass. To remove the glass, it looks like you need to remove a few things. I'm not going to go through everything in the TSRM because I don't think it's all completely necessary. So I'm going to remove mainly the stoppers, which I believe are right there and right here. I think those are the glass stoppers. So you need to remove those. You need to remove this component here. I think that's the stabilizer, I'm not sure. And they also say to remove the inner stabilizer, which I think is the wheel, the rolling piece up here, no, right here. So I'll remove those pieces and see if I can get the glass out. I may have to remove more, but I'm hoping not to remove everything from the TSRM, because that's a few extra components and they don't seem to be necessary. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by rolling the window up part way. So that felt is completely smashed. Not a lot of cushion there anymore. None at all. And again, that is worn perfectly smooth. There is no padding whatsoever. I do think I might need to remove this front piece. 3 screws. Oh, and I already pulled off this bracket. I'm sorry, this door trim piece. It just pulls out. So this one. Eek. Okay, that's one way to remove the mirror. Shit. All good. Drop test. Passed. So this is on the outside. Very carefully, there you go. There's that piece. So now you can see why Toyota would charge $100 for that. That's actually a pretty involved piece. Now they say to remove it through the service hole. I don't know which direction that is. Maybe that's this one. Alright. There you go. Mark 3 Supra window regulator out of the car. For reassembly on the regulator, you need to grease up the regulator joints. So I'm going to do that right now. The areas you need to grease are here, 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 and then the teeth area. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, here you can see the exterior trim, and that is one of the pads. Pads in quotes because it's now just a flat, hard piece of crap. It looks like that is a part of that exterior trim piece. So that is why I can't find that in the parts catalog, because that piece is a part of the damn trim. Notice how there's nothing on the back side. Oops. If the camera will focus. So I'm just missing the trim altogether. So, I'm going to need to get new exterior trim, I believe. I'm also going to try and replace the interior side pieces. Here's one of them, because that looks terrible. In order to remove the exterior trim, there is a screw there, and there is a screw on the very back side. Come on, right there. And to get to the one in the back, you may have to remove part of the rear molding. Now, The TSRM says to just pry outwards to get it off the clips. Let's see if that works at all. It's actually coming loose. And I didn't break a single clip. Okay, I reviewed prices on a bunch of these parts. These guys are around 15 bucks each, which is not crazy expensive. But the trim piece that goes on the door on the outside, this guy that I took off, this is crazy expensive. It's like $150. So I'm gonna try and fluff up the pad in the front here because I read of somebody on, I think it was MK3 Supra.net or something on the old sites. They had some luck fluffing this stuff up again. So I'm gonna try and do that on the front piece, and then I may try and make my own for the rear. The rest of the piece, I imagine this used to be a little bit further out, so I can try and heat that up and pull it out and then let it cool that way again. Not gonna be perfect, but I can give that a shot. So that's my plan, because I don't want to spend $500 on these parts. The regulator's another 120, something like that, 100 bucks. I could replace the regulator, but I'm not sure that that's going to solve the problem anyway. So there's just a little update on my plans. So I'm going to go try and clean this guy, and if I have success with this, then I'll try and do the same thing here. Assuming I can get this one to look nice, I will see what I can do about making my own version for this. There you go, that's my plan. Let's see how it goes. After only a few minutes of scrubbing, I've got some pretty good fluff to this guy. So that's great. I'm gonna try this again on the other one, and then do the same thing to the large trim piece. And I think I might just be in business. So that's good news. After simply fluffing up the felt pads and just cleaning it with a nylon brush and dish soap, they look pretty darn good actually. So there's one on the trim, here's the one by itself. So they're nice and fluffy now. That's good. My problem though is that I am still missing one of those inserts completely. So there's one back here. It looks like mine rusted off at some point, and it's not in the door, at least not that I could see. So I can get a new one of these, and I just looked it up actually, it's $150. I thought it was closer to $30. $150 is a lot, so I don't know if I'm gonna do that. Another issue I'm seeing is that this trim piece has two different surfaces there, and you can see how this is pushed up against this surface. I don't think they're supposed to be like that. I think they're supposed to be a little bit more separated, like you see there. I've got drill bits in there just to try and pry it open, but you can see looking on end, I believe that this trim piece is intended to sit more like this. And instead I've got it like that. So I tried to heat it with a blow dryer, get it to really stick out and sort of reset in this position, but it's falling back to how it used to be. So I'm gonna maybe just put some plastic rod in there and then reassemble the door and see if that helps. Right now I think just fluffing these pads is gonna help quite a bit. At least it'll help enough that the door doesn't, or the window doesn't get damaged, which is really my main concern. And then I'm noticing a lot of other rattling inside the door itself, so I'll keep pursuing that. But there you go, there's an update on the door trim. Okay, I came up with at least a partial plan for the trim piece. I've got the felt reworked up here, and I added some new felt just from Home Depot here. It's not nearly as soft, but my hope is just to give a little bit of padding so it's not rubbing flat up against the rest of the trim. Now I'm going to try to fix the rattle in the door, and hopefully you can hear that. The door's closed, it's latched, it sounds terrible. So I'm gonna play around in here, see if I can find exactly where that rattle's coming from. One thing is contributing that I've found already, and it's this bar for the lock. And it had a piece of foam there that's worn down. So now, it rattles quite a bit. If I hold that still, it still rattles, but that's one that I've removed. So I'm just gonna hunt around and try and figure out what's rattling. After spending a good amount of time investigating this, it seems there are a couple places that contribute to the rattling sound. One of them is the lock switch. Which I don't see a way to fix, so that's just going to stay the way it is. Other than that, I think it's just the door is flimsy. You can easily flex the entire door structure. So I think that's just, it's just a lot of the door reverberating. A lot of these metal rods on the plastic clips do not sit real snug. I might take some Dynamat type material and just put it on parts of the door, see if that'll help. I just reinstalled the regulator, and a quick tip that I missed, on this bolt, you can install this part way and then rest the regulator on this hole. That's what that's there for, and that makes it a lot easier. If you're by yourself, it's pretty difficult to get it all lined up and then start a screw. That's frustrating. So that's what that's there for. Go ahead and use that. But otherwise, the regulator is in now, and it sounds a lot smoother just from greasing it. So hopefully that makes a little bit of a difference. Okay, glass going in. This was more difficult than I thought it would be coming out, so enjoy my misery. So the window is now secure. I'm gonna get the trim in there before I scratch up the window. And I think the hard part is done. The next few parts are actually the stabilizer, inner stabilizer, this guy, and then the window stops, and then the inner trim supports, and then the outer belt molding. Still have some movement in the glass, and at this point the only way to really get rid of that appears to be the adjustment of this felt piece, and I've got plenty of adjustment in the slot, but the bracket is such that I don't know that I can really move it as far back as I need to. There's just too much clearance, that's all there is to it. So, let's see just how far we can go. That is absolutely maxed out right there. That is as far north as I can go. But that is a lot better. So now let's do the back. So that's a lot better, just with the adjustment of that. It's not great. And if this outside trim piece was new, I think it'd have a bit of a split in that feature that would hold against the window a little bit. But that's better, considering this was about the worst position for the window before. So let's roll it all the way up and I'll work on this stabilizer. Now, stabilizer makes contact with a pad piece here, not the actual glass, but just a pad. So that's nice and tight. I don't like that. I don't see any reason for the stabilizer not to be 100% up, so that's the way I'm going to put it. So ultimately, I think what I'm seeing a lot of is just the slop in the regulator. And a new regulator, I'm sure, would make that a little better. But right there, right as I lower the window, the front will start to lower and the rear does not want to lower. And I've moved that trim piece so that it's not really supporting it. It's pretty loose, very loose, and it's still just catching, and it doesn't want to fall. So I think that's just the regulator itself. It's just not as smooth as it needs to be. But I think that's just how it is in a Mark III. That's what you have to deal with. Adjusted the window as best I can. There's not a whole lot of movement in the window itself. There's still a little bit, but I think it's about as low as I can get. The door still has quite a bit of a ring to it. And most of that is on the outer panel. So what I'm going to do right now is put on some Dynamat and try and cut down on that ringing, which I think is going to go a long ways to making the sound a lot nicer when you close the door. So you can hear a difference. Obviously that outer panel has much more of a hollow sound. This inside panel seems pretty well deadened because it's got a bunch of crap bolted onto it. Some of the panels are different, a little less good there. But that outer panel just has a lot of hollow ring to it. So I'm going to throw some Dynamat strips on there just to try and cut down on that a little bit. I may throw a few strips on this inner panel, but I'm more concerned about that outer skin. All you need to do to apply this stuff, if you've got a heat gun or a blow dryer, that makes it a little better. But otherwise, you can just clean off the surface that you're going to adhere to, pull off the backing, slap it on. It's just like tape. There's one. Let's see if it sounds any better. Definitely better. There's more of a ring on the backside still. Let's see what the sound difference is. That's a lot better. Door is reassembled. Everything's back in there. What I did while it was apart, I adjusted the tracks that hold the glass. I took out the regulator, I greased the regulator. I didn't replace anything in there, I didn't tighten anything up. I cleaned the felt pads on the interior side of the door, and I cleaned the pad, the one pad that I had left, on the exterior trim piece. They were really worn and matted down, so that helped a bunch. Let's see, what else did I do? I added a couple sheets of Dynamat to the outer door skin and the inner door skin. Just 1/2 of one speaker kit. So not a whole lot of dynamite, but a little bit. And I greased up the guide track. I greased up the regulator. I greased up some of the locks. I greased up the handles. Those are a lot better. I didn't actually buy anything to replace anything other than the dynamite. So no material costs, no parts replaced. But I think I made a pretty big difference. So I'll shut the door now, and then I'll play back the before again so you can see the immediate difference. It seems like it made a pretty good difference. I won't know until I listen to the before and after, but here you go. Not nearly as much resonance as I think I had before. One more time. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. It's definitely better. Door closing, window down after some improvements. One more time. Door closing after improvements with the window half up. There you go. I think this concludes the door inspection, door fix video. So there you go. I'm going to enjoy my slightly better sounding doors now.